Madam President.
Senator from Kansas.
Madam President, thank you very much. I'm here today to raise once again a topic about how we raise our youth, how we raise our children in rural America. And I want to talk about, just for a few moments, about the proposed Department of Labor child farm labor rules. Last week, we had perhaps what would be considered a piece of good news. The Department of Labor announced that they would withdraw and repropose the parental exemption portion of their proposed child labor rules. I'm worried, however, despite this good news, there is still a lot of effect that will occur, a lot of consequences that will occur as a result of the rules that are not proposed rules that are not being withdrawn, and there is no suggestion that they're going to be reproposed. And so the thing I want to make clear to my colleagues is that while the Department of Labor announced that they were going to withdraw a portion of the rules, unfortunately, the majority of what is going to be offensive, difficult, and a challenge for our way of life in rural America remains. Last year, the Department of Labor proposed a set of rules to on their own volition, no direction by Congress, to put in place restrictions upon a person's ability to work on a farm and restrictions upon a young person's ability to work on a farm, including their own family's farm. And what we're talking about here is youth less than 16 years of age. And those rules as proposed would actually restrict the ability of a person, a son or daughter, to work on their parents' farm. The current exemption is that if your parents own a substantial interest of that farming operation, you can work on your family's farm. The proposed rules, as of just a few weeks ago, said that they would restrict that definition, and it had to be something more than your parents. The current law says, the current rules say that if your parents have a substantial interest in a farm, you can work on that farm. The rules were, as proposed, said that we're going to narrow that definition. And if your family operates in a family farming corporation or a limited liability company, these new restrictions would apply. Fortunately, that portion of the proposed rules the Department of Labor has withdrawn, and I assume will be reproposing what their definition of a family farm is. The point I want to make is that so much of the proposed rules yet remain. The remaining portions of the rules still threaten to fundamentally alter agriculture as we know it today. If the DOL rules as now proposed go forward as they currently stand, the education and training for the next generation of farmers and ranchers will be severely disrupted. We've relied upon 4-H, FFA, county extension programs to provide farm safety training and certification for a long time, but the Department of Labor now says they no longer want those programs to qualify because they are too local. They want a national standard and want to replace with a Department of Labor program, safety training program, replace what has traditionally and very effectively occurred through 4-H, FFA, and county extension programs. The department has, in my view, ignored research that shows the programs that we currently have in place with FFA and 4-H and extension improve the safety habits of young people, and instead criticizes these training programs for being too locally driven and lacking federal direction. Their solution is to nationalize these programs and have them run by the United States Department of Labor. In my view, local experts in our high schools, our FFA programs, our 4-H clubs should be the ones who are conducting training programs and educate our young people. And parents and communities should be allowed to look after the best interest of their families and their community's citizens. The Department of Labor, in addition to attacking the programs that are in place, that are valuable to us in rural America, is also proposing to change the so-called agricultural hazard occupations. The proposed rules would prohibit a young person under the age of 16 from participating, even with the certification and safety training from the Department of Labor. They would be prohibited from doing such things as rounding up cattle on horseback, operating a tractor. The rules, proposed rules, say that you cannot be involved in production agriculture if you're more than 6 feet off the ground. Well, in today's environment, in today's agriculture, tractors and combines are 6 feet off the ground. Can't clean out a stall with a shovel and a wheelbarrow. Those are things that I'm sure maybe the 15-year-old doesn't want to do, but they are things that are important to a family's farming operation. They're important to agriculture and of value to a young person in their training and developing skills that are important to them for the rest of their life. Can't work in a pen with a bull or mama cow. And here's one that really stands out to me. No engaging or assisting in animal husbandry that, quote, inflicts pain upon the animal, such as branding, breeding, dehorning, vaccinating, castrating, or treating sick animals. The inflicting pain sounds to me much more like something different than an interest. Inflicting pain upon an animal sounds like a different standard than really worrying about the young person's safety. These are important tasks that have to be done on a farm and that young people can safely do. One additional example that stands out to me is that they are suggesting in the rules that they would limit a young person's exposure to direct sunlight if the temperature reaches a certain limit once you factor in wind velocity and humidity. How does that work in the practical world of agriculture and farming today? For someone in Washington, D.C. to propose rules that restrict a young person's ability to work on a neighbor's farm because of the amount of sunlight, wind velocity, and humidity is something that, again, in my view, demonstrates a lack of understanding about how things work in the real world. One would assume that the Department of Labor, before making such drastic changes to farm labor rules, they would have identify reliable evidence and data to show the need for changes. In fact, the Department of Labor admits that it lacks the data to justify many of its suggested changes. And furthermore, according to the National Farm Medicine Center, youth-related injuries from farm accidents have declined nearly 60% from 1998 to 2009. I have no doubt if you ask a farmer or a rancher about the importance of safety, they would tell you that safety is a top concern, especially when they're dealing with a young person. But they would also tell you that it is critical to a rural way of life in being able to train and encourage the next generation to safely and successfully pursue careers in agriculture. If today's young person is not given the chance to learn at a young age what it takes to operate a farm, we put at risk the future of agriculture in our nation. I've always had a strong interest in agriculture. My state of Kansas its economy revolves in many ways about the success of farmers and ranchers. And the ability of communities across our state is dependent upon the success, the profitability of production agriculture. But I also have known and strongly believe that there is something more than just economics to family farms. This is the way that historically in our country, in our nation's history, we have transmitted our character, our values, our integrity, our love of life, our understanding of how things work from generation to generation. And it's worked. It's been an important component of our country's history, who we are as American people. Today across Kansas, when I visit with a business owner, they will tell me they love to hire farm kids because they have a different characteristic, a different makeup, a standard that is different than other people. They learn something about reliability and that work doesn't get done if you don't show up. And it's not about punching the clock to check in and to check out. That agriculture, that a calf is born at times that are inconvenient to the farmer. There's just a different set of characteristics that a young person develops by growing up and working on a family farm. If these changes go into effect, and the rule as proposed is being considered and expected that we will have an answer within several months from the Department of Labor as to what the final regulations will be. But if these rules go into effect as they are written, not only will we see a shrinking rural workforce, our nation's youth will be deprived of valuable career training opportunities, and a certain way of life that many of us highly value will disappear. It is important to us as a country, certainly to a state like mine, that a young person experience the value of farming. I don't know how many times you talk to somebody who's determined what their career is going to be based upon an experience that they had as a young person, and their ability to know what they want to do with their life is determined by the experiences they have as a young child. Our country cannot afford to lose the next generation of farmers and ranchers, and this rule should be withdrawn in its entirety. We know that rural America's values are not always Washington values, and in the weeks ahead, I would ask my colleagues and Americans across the country to express their opposition to the Department of Labor for this destructive rule. Don't allow it to move forward so that we can protect our values for the next generation of American farmers and make sure that rural America remains a great place to live, grow, and raise a family. I yield the floor.